Nora Speaks is a weekly podcast that tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community. With show topics such as youth empowerment, education, women's impact, and civic engagement, Nora Speaks challenges the listener to not only join the movement, but be the movement. On the show, you'll learn from insightful guests who have demonstrated capacity in these fields and more, and I'm your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Nora Speaks podcast, and I am your host, Nora Muhammad. It is a privilege and pleasure to be with you for this week for another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, I am Nora Muhammad. I am many things, but first and foremost, I am your sister, and I am a woman who is passionate about our community, passionate about our people, our women, our children, our brothers, and just looking to make a difference by contributing some positivity, some insights, and hopefully good guidance to the listeners. And this is a podcast that is specifically for the Black community. This is not a comedic podcast. This is not an entertainment podcast. This is not a sip and talk podcast. This is a show that strives to do just what you heard in the introduction, to tug on the soul and consciousness of the Black community, to give us some things to think about, to be strategic and creative in how we approach some of the negative outcomes in our community and how we can strategize to bring about positive outcomes in our community. There is no amount of work that we can do in which we can exhaust ourselves or find ourselves exhausting in solutions. I think that we definitely need to be full steam ahead. I believe that we should be passionate and prioritize the needs of our community. I myself, I strive to prioritize the needs and do the work that it is for me to do to impact our community. This is not a podcast for everyone. This is a podcast for those of us who are sincere and dedicated, who are striving to be an example of change, who want to do the work, not just talk about the issues, who want to problem solve, not just be problem finders. We know we have plenty of those people who every time you try to create a solution and be strategic, they have a problem for every solution. And so I'm glad that you have joined me in this episode. And if you find that this episode has value to you, I encourage you to subscribe where you listen and to encourage your family and friends to take a listen. This episode, let's title it Getting Unstuck. And, by that, I mean, I know that many can relate to that feeling of being stuck in whatever it is that you're striving to do, to achieve a problem that you're trying to solve, and whether it's a business endeavor, a personal endeavor, a family relationship endeavor, a financial endeavor. Sometimes we have the great idea, but it is difficult for us to produce the outcome. And so there's that gap between the idea or the intent and the outcome. And I remember I attended a conference once, and it was actually called The Science of Implementation. And I found that to be a very interesting conference because what they discussed there was, and that conference was for people who are striving to make differences in their communities, nonprofit organizations, local municipalities. And so what they were explaining at that conference is there is that area, that middle area between the idea or the intention and the outcome. And for people to cover that area, to get from one to the other, you have to implement. And what do you need to implement? What do we need to implement? And they, in that training, They explain the science of implementation. And there's so many different components to it. It's very interesting. And maybe I'll share more on that in another episode. But as it pertains to just us in our own personal lives and our personal goals and objectives, you know that feeling of being stuck, right? As I said, there's that gap between the idea and the outcome. And when we fill that gap with strategy, with effort, with work and activity, then we can find ourselves making our way speedily to that outcome. However, often that gap between the idea and the outcome may be filled with worry, with procrastination, with doubt, with anxiety, and yes, even with distractions. And so the excitement, that initial excitement that we have, and the great intentions that we have become stagnated. It's like we've found ourselves in mud or quicksand and now we're stuck, right? So what I would encourage you to do when you're feeling stuck, and I've gotten stuck with this podcast. I've gotten stuck with personal goals that I've set for myself. And for me, and for some folks that I've spoken to about this same issue, this is what I would like to share with you. When you feel stuck, when I feel stuck, let's examine how we feel. How do you feel when you're stuck? Is your mood depressed? Do you feel discouraged or unenthusiastic when you're stuck? So examine, take a look, do an inventory of how you feel. And then next, examine your thoughts when you're stuck. Are you doubting yourself? Are you focusing on diverging ideas suddenly instead of that big grandiose idea, that great idea that you had? Now you're like, well, maybe I'll do this, or maybe I'll do that. Or maybe you're thinking about something totally unrelated entirely, right? So really look at the thoughts that you're thinking. Do you think you're not qualified? Do you think you're not good enough? What is it that you're thinking about when you feel stuck? And then lastly, when you're stuck, examine your behavior. Is the behavior self-sabotaging? Are you feeding distractions? Are you finding yourselves, instead of writing, on social media, looking at television, YouTube? What are you doing that is not the activity that's going to meet your goal, right? So examine how you feel, examine what you're thinking, and examine your behavior. And it may even be helpful to write it down so that you can take a look at it and see what's there, right? So I'm going to give you an example of what I mean when I say examine your feelings, examine your thoughts, and examining your behavior. So let's just say your goal is to get more fit, right? And you say, okay, I'm done. The weekend is wrapping up on Monday. Monday is my go day. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to get started on my fitness journey on Monday. And what happens when your alarm goes off? What do you feel? Do you feel like you're already a lost cause? Do you feel like it's going to take too long? It's too much work? Do you feel hopeless? Do you feel like you'll never achieve your goal? What are you feeling? If your goal is to get more fit, that alarm goes off Monday morning, what are you thinking? Are you perhaps remembering everything that you did that helped you get off track in the first place? Are you constantly perseverating on what's wrong instead of celebrating the great idea to get fit? Right? So what are you thinking about? Are you thinking about, well, what am I going to look like when I go to the gym, when I go to the park, when I go to the track? Think about that. Take a look at what are you thinking? And then examine behavior, right? So that Monday morning, your alarm goes off. Are you laying in bed thinking about what you're going to wear to the gym, what you're going to wear to the park, right? Or are you saying, you know what, I'll go work out on Tuesday because what I'll do is today after work, I'll go buy some new exercise clothes. I'll do that before I start my fitness program, right? So what are you doing? What is your behavior? How are you procrastinating? How are you distracting yourselves? Or before you leave to take that 45-minute walk, do you have to tidy your house? Are you watering your plants? Are you sweeping your kitchen floor, right? Are you sending emails, right? Or maybe you're in the car. Maybe you're in the car and you actually drove to the park or to the gym. Are you sitting in your car scrolling through social media? Or are you wasting precious minutes trying to find a playlist, right? So what behaviors are we engaging in, right? So when we're feeling stuck, it's helpful for us to do an inventory and look at our feelings, our thoughts, and our actions. And I think that if we're honest, if we write this down, then we can probably come to the conclusion that our feelings, our thoughts, and our actions are very destructive to any progress that we could make. So when you're feeling stuck, what helps? I believe moving. Just move forward. Do something. Do something that supports the goal that you have for yourself. And it may not be a perfect something. It may not be an elegant something. It may not be a precise something, but do something. Type the first sentence, jog the first lap, place the first call, make the first pitch, do something, and then do it again. And remember that if nothing happens, then nothing happens. Sometimes we think, I just don't know what to do. Well, when you don't know what to do, place a call to someone who does know what to do, right? Sometimes it helps to take a walk and clear your head. And you may find that taking a walk, going for a run, whether your issue is beginning the essay or beginning the book or beginning the financial journey, right? Sometimes detaching, getting away, but taking a walk, right? So even if your goal is to write the first chapter, and walking may not be directly impactful on the writing, it can be directly impactful on your mood. It can be directly impactful on your creativity. You could see something, hear something that strikes your creativity. So sometimes it helps to take a walk, go outside, move your body, and you'll find that that may invite new and fresh ideas. And the ultimate objective is to make some kind of progress, little by little and inch by inch. And I'm going to hit you with two sayings. And this may be rhetorical, or excuse me, it may be some rhetoric that you've heard, and it may be just witty, but there's truth in it, right? We've all heard that the longest journey begins with one step. We've all heard that. And one of my favorites is, it is the start that stops most people. It is the start that stops most people. So sometimes instead of wallowing in that stuck feeling, recognize it, do an examination of your feelings, your thoughts, and your actions. And since they are not in service of the outcome, do something. Do something. But first, let me also say, do not waste any time beating yourself up. You know how hard we can be on ourselves. And if we were trying to give encouragement to a friend, we would be supportive, we would be empathetic, we would be compassionate, but we could just be so brutal on our own selves. So don't waste any time beating yourself up. Just recognize that you're feeling stuck. Recognize that your feelings, your thoughts, and your actions aren't in service to your goal, and move forward. Just move forward. Now, another question that could come is, how do I stop myself from feeling stuck? And That's a reasonable question. And it can be frustrating, right? And look, you feeling stuck or I feeling stuck, it's not an awful thing because we're stuck because we made a decision to do something good. So we've started with a good decision. Now, how do we implement what we need to do to achieve that objective? So if I just go back, I would say, how do you not get stuck? One, you can write down your plan of action. You can write down, now it does not have to be detailed, but you can kind of outline what your plan of action is and then just do it. And then you can tweak it as you go, and you'll find that you probably will need to tweak it. But encourage the feeling, not encourage the feeling, ignore the feeling of being stuck. Ignore it. Or ignore the thoughts that you think. Oh man, it's going to take so long to write this book. So what? Just get moving, right? So if we go back to the example that I used earlier about getting fit, right? When you wake up, you may not feel like getting out of bed. You may not feel like taking a walk. You may think that the weather isn't right. I'll wait until it's brighter. I'll wait till it's less cloudy. You may feel like that. You may think that. But if the plan is to walk, then walk, right? So look, those feelings, those thoughts, take them with you. Take them on the walk with you. I didn't feel like getting out of bed today. It's too cloudy for a walk. You can think all of that and keep moving. And you may find that during your walk, those feelings and those thoughts, they'll change. They'll change. So how do we keep from getting stuck? Just keep moving. We would do ourselves a great deal of good if we ignored the self-sabotage that wants to kind of take over or settle in. Instead, think about the strategic action. The strategic action, the steps that we outline in our plan, and move forward. And if we develop the consistency to keep moving forward, then we'll soon be able to introduce the idea to the outcome. And it takes discipline. So developing good habits, some people wait for the motivation, but motivation may not always be there. You may not always feel like it. You may not always think about going out for that walk, or your thoughts might not always be positive about starting that new chapter, getting control of your finances. Your thoughts might not be there, but you already know that you have a goal. So develop the habit of taking the steps that's going to move us towards the goal, and develop that discipline and make that a habit. And we may be surprised by how much different our thoughts and feelings can change with forward movement. Now, my disclaimer, I am not a psychotherapist. I am not a life coach. I am just your sister, and I'm your sister trying to share with you a good word about getting unstuck. I'm interested in your thoughts, your comments, or your tips. What do you do that helps you from getting stuck? Or what do you do when you feel stuck? I would love to hear it, and we could share that with the listeners. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. It is always a privilege, and I value you so much. Thank you again for listening, and until next time, stay in peace.
I think America is doing a lot of good for you and I, and then I say it's done a lot of harm. They take and give to you soup if you don't have work. They give to you bread if they don't have work for you. They know you are lazy. They know you don't think for yourself. They know you depend on them to think for you. So since you are so in love with them and have so much confidence and trust in them, they give you a little soup until they can give you a little work. But I said that is not yet good. They should teach you to be yourself. They should teach you how to get on the road to self and become an independent nation like all other nations.
Food for thought with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, if you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, noramuhammad.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@noraspeaks.com. You can also follow the Nora Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nora Speaks Podcast. I'll be sure to include links in the show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.